Hello, Kardec Radio Facebook page. We are live. We've started back up for the year 2020, our Sunday night programs. We usually go simultaneously on Kardec Radio. It doesn't seem to be connecting, so we'll have to figure that out for next time. But we are on Kardec Radio Facebook page, and we're on our live program. And we will put this video on YouTube channel and the BitChute channel after we're done. So welcome everyone tonight, this wonderful Sunday, January 5th, 2020. And today, again, we're talking about Allan Kardec's The Gospel According to Spiritism. Of course, Allan Kardec codified Spiritism, and you'll find that in his book, The Spirit's Book, which is the seminal book, which is 1,019 questions that Allan Kardec wrote in order to figure out and understand more from the spirit world. And if you haven't had a chance, please tell your friends or yourself, watch the Netflix movie, Kardec. It's a wonderful movie. I recommend it. It's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, it's free. If not, it's a good reason to get Netflix, at least for a while. And you'll understand more about Kardec. And I cannot tell you enough how wonderful that movie is. And it's done by the same director, Wagner the Assisi, who did No Solar, which was another wonderful movie. So now let's talk about the Gospel According to Spiritism. So today we're going to talk about chapter 6, which is Christ the Consoler. And this is how they started out the chapter. They talked about the gentle yoke. This is what they said from Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke unto you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. This is what Allan Kardec said about this. This is what he said, that all sufferings are such as misery, deceptions, physical pain, and loss of loved ones will find consolation from faith in the future and from confidence in God's justice, all of which Christ came to teach man. On the other hand, for those who expect nothing after this life or who simply doubt, afflictions will seem heavier to them as they do not have any hope of mitigating their bitterness. This is what prompted Jesus to say, Come unto me, all who are fatigued, and I will give you rest. Meanwhile, the assistance and happiness promised to the afflicted depends on one condition, which is to be found in the law he taught. His yoke is the observance of this law, but the yoke is light and the law gentle, because it only imposes love and charity as its obligations. So we are, let's talk about that. What he's talking, the yoke is light. Now, it's the observance of the law. And so if you study Spiritism, you'll go more and more and understand that Spiritism is all about love, charity, fraternity. And is the yoke easy? Well, in a sense, you can say it's easy, but it's, it's to follow the golden rule. In essence, you're nice to people, you help people, but in our daily life, is it easy? It's easy as far as doing something. The hard part, this is my contention, you may have different views, is changing your character and your personality so you actually live it. So you do love people. You do start changing your thought patterns. You start changing your character and personality, because that is why we are on earth, is to change our character and personality. And that is the hard part. You're actually rewiring your character, your primitive emotions, and as we've been told many times in the books by Chico Xavier and other medium spiritist writers, is we have to remove the blemishes, right? Remove those primitive emotions and replace them with more civilized emotions. So let's carry on to what Allan Kardec wrote. So then he talked about the promised consoler. And of course, this is in John chapter 14, verse 15, 17, and 26. If you love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him, but ye shall know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. So Allan Kardec writes, this is what he says. In this passage from John, Jesus promised another consoler, the Spirit of truth, which the world did not yet know, because it was not sufficiently mature to be able to understand. This is the consoler sent by the Father to teach mankind all things, and to call to mind all that Christ had said. Therefore, if this Spirit of truth was to come at a later date to teach these additional matters, then it was because Christ had not told everything. If the Spirit of truth was to come to remind us of what Christ had said, that is because it had been forgotten or not properly understood. Spiritism has come at the predicted time to fulfill Christ's promise. Presided over by the Spirit of truth, it calls man to observe the law and reveals all manner of things, so making understandable what Jesus had said only in parable form. Christ himself had given the warning, listen to all those who have ears to hear. Spiritism has come to open man's eyes and ears because it speaks without figuration or allegory, so lifting up the veil which had been intentionally cast upon certain mysteries. Finally, then, it has come to this to bring supreme consolation to the disinherited of this earth, and to all who suffer, by showing them the just cause of their suffering and the useful purpose of all pain. Let's talk about this for a second. So, Spiritism has told us, even I think in the book Genesis and the Spirit's book, is the Old Testament and the New Testament were given to mankind. The type of message given to mankind at the time it was given was in with the knowledge of the environment, the culture, and the technological level of where they were at. And therefore, Spiritism came in the 1850s to give us what we could understand at the culture and technological level that we are at. Now, there are subsequent messages, let's say for G. Vao Owen and Chico Xavier, where they were talking about even new things that were not included into what Allan Kardec recorded in his main 5 books, such as they were talking about, just a couple examples. Chico Xavier said, they had personal communication devices. I think he talked in the 1930s to his mother. Well, we call those cell phones here. I mean, and he said that those levels of heaven are 50 to 100 years ahead in technology. Now, if they had said, we have personal communication devices in the 1850s, I go, what's that? There wasn't even the telephone. The telegraph was around, but that wasn't even close. So this is an example of what they can tell us that we can understand. In G. Vao Owen, there was a talking about how, and also in the books, I think in the Realms of Mediumship, in the introduction by Emmanuel, when he talked that every thought is tagged. And that was in the 1950s. I think that was published. G. Vao Owen was in the 1920s, that everything is recorded. Now, that's like, in the 1920s, you'd think there was this book with this quill pin that it records everything. 1950s, there were computers, but very little known. They had lights, right? And tape reels moving. Now, in the, the 21st century, we understand data and databases. A lot of people may not understand completely, but they understand that this data is kept somewhere. Now, we can understand what was said by G. Vao Owen, by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, and we can also understand what they mean by tagged. everything has this unique ID. I don't think he used those exact words, but that's my interpretation. And we know that we can understand that because our cell phones have our unique phone number. And the way the cell phones work, they send these data packets out with that phone number, and the conversation goes back and forth, and they all have the packet. In that packet, they have that snippet of conversation, that audio file, right? Where it's from, the geolocation of that, everything is known. And so now when there's a parable of, that, not a hair falls from your head, or a fledgling falls from its nest, that God doesn't know. And, before we think, well, yeah, who would know that? But now when we know the concept of every thought from every creature, everything is recorded. We go, oh yeah, okay. You can actually start to understand that, how someone could then, okay, let's see what happened, in this neighborhood on, January 5th. That's what happened in this geolocation, and what were people's thoughts? And you could look that up on the database. That is a concept that many people understand now. So therefore, as Allan Kardec says, they're bringing us this information so we can understand it. The New Testament was full of parables and allegories because they couldn't really say all those things. And then, of course, Spiritism tells us the messages of love and fraternity and charity are universal. The other messages, you don't have to believe every word, right? You don't have to take it as complete truth, because they could only tell us what they could tell us. And of course, everybody knows, especially in the Old Testament, there are many things in there that seem quite cruel, and even some things that don't seem right to us in our culture, as far as discrimination and so forth, in the New Testament. So those are things that they had to say in order to get the message out. If they had said everything in Spiritism now, they would have, it would not have seen or being able to get an audience. So therefore, think of that. So what I like to caution people is, there's many people that believe the Bible, the Old and New Testament, are the Word of God, and God love them for that. But it's the message that's important, and Spiritism tells us that the message is dynamic. As we grow, the messages will become to our level. They'll be more complex, right? You don't teach algebra to a kindergartner. You wait till they're in 7th or 8th grade. You teach them when they are ready for that. The same with us. So let's go on to what Allan Kardec said. So I'll keep reading. So Christ said, "Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be consoled." And Allan Kardec says, "But how can anyone feel fortunate if they don't know why they suffer? Spiritism shows the cause of suffering to be in past existences and in the destiny of this planet on which man makes atonement for his past. It explains the object behind suffering by showing it as a salutary process which produces a cure, and also as a means of purification, both of which guarantee future happiness. From this, it is possible for man to understand that he deserves all his sufferings and to believe that this is just. He also learns that his suffering and pain will help him to progress, and so is able to accept it without complaining, just as a worker accepts the work which will guarantee his salary. Spiritism gives man an unshakable faith in the future, so that he is no longer troubled by this consuming doubt within his soul. He is also enabled to see things from on high, which makes the importance of his earthly vicissitudes disappear on the vast and splendid horizon which Spiritism sets before him. So let's talk about what Allan Kardec just said. First, it is not easy to accept everything without complaining. It has taken me years. This is why it is very important to actively study Spiritism. Because you can read Spiritism. You can read about it. So you can read the Spirit's book. You can read, yes, reincarnation. Oh, yes, problems in the past come to me, and I have to learn from them. And intellectually, you can do that. But then emotionally, when something occurs, like, some bolt out of the blue, or someone, deceived you, or you lost a lot of money, or your new car just got scratched, you just like, oh, and then you complain, why did they scratch my new car, man? You should have learned, like me, always buy a used car. That way it comes pre-scratched. But, and this is absolutely natural. Again, this is why. But what I see is the more you study Spiritism and the more you really understand how your past affects your future and your present will affect your future, the more so it's a higher priority, because your next curriculum is going to be based on how you're doing in this course. You can start intellectualizing, and with your heart, and this is what true wisdom is, of course, it's intellect and emotion and empathy and love all together, right? And then you start learning that, okay, that person scratched my car. My car is a temporary materialist, piece of material. I am immortal, whatever, right? I just lost some money. Okay, I wonder what I needed to learn from that. Or this person did this to me. I go, okay, what did I do to them in the past? I hope they feel better. You can just read Spiritism, but if you study it more and you learn from it, then you start to rewire your brain, and then as these events happen to you, then you really can get to the part where you're not complaining. Because I remember when I first read this, back when I don't know how many years ago, I go, without complaining, you kidding me? But it's true now. That doesn't mean I don't complain at all, right? I still complain, but I'm doing it a lot less. I'm not there yet at all. Don't think that I am. But if I do complain, it lasts a lot shorter time period where, okay, I accept it, and I the emotion doesn't causes anywhere as much. So it may momentarily stress, but I free it up extremely fast, faster than I used to. So that's why when he says Spiritism gives man unshakable faith in the future, that he is no longer troubled by this consuming doubt within his soul, those are true words if you really take the time to understand that. And this is the hard part, one of the hard parts, that everything that happens to you is really for our own good. The spirit world never gives us events because they want us to be punished. They give us events for so we can learn, right? Don't you, didn't you hate it when you're a kid and your parents said, this is for your own good? I go, no, you think, no, it's not. I don't want to have to take ownership of what I did wrong. We are the same, of course, but your parents were right. And God in the spirit world is right. So that is, the more you can understand that our world is this chaotic planet. We have dictatorships, we have concentration camps, we have these horrible things happening. And then you have to think, okay, those people, let's say in North Korea, those people who were born in North Korea in this horrible dictatorship, what why are they there? Why are they living through this? Well, maybe because they are the ones that had the boot on the person's neck before. Maybe they're learning a valuable lesson of what it is like to live in a regime of that you were part of in the past. That doesn't mean you can't feel sorry for them. It doesn't mean you can't say this is not right. It doesn't mean you can't protest, right? It just means that you can step back a little bit and understand why these things happen. They're not good, but they're part of the learning experience that we have to go through, because basically we're a planet of uncivilized spirits and we have to be trained. It happens, and it's all going to make us much better. So someday, and Spiritism says we're starting that process now, to be a planet of regeneration where we won't have those dictatorships and those vast concentration camps. So this is, we're all working towards this, but we have to learn spirit by spirit, person by person. 7 billion people on Earth. There's about 21 billion spirits around, and the levels around the Earth, above and below the Earth. Every, at least more than 50% of them have to be really good people. So the rest of the people start copying that characteristics, and then we'll really start the ramp up to be a planet of regeneration. So let me go on more with the gospel according to Spiritism. Okay, where am I? Okay, yes. This is what Allan Kardec says. In this manner, Spiritism realizes what Jesus said of the promised consoler by bringing knowledge of those things which allow man to know where he came from, where he is going, and why he is on earth, so attracting mankind towards the true principles of God's law and offering consolation through faith and hope. Now, this is from the Spirit of Truth. I have come, as I came on another occasion to those misguided sons and daughters of Israel, to bring the truth and to dissipate the darkness. Hearken unto me, as my words in the past have done. So must Spiritism remind the incredulous that above them reigns the immutable truth, which is the existence of the good God, the great God who causes the plants to germinate and the waves to rise up. As a reaper, I have gathered in the sheaves the scattered goodness in the breast of humanity and said, come unto me, all you who suffer. But man, with ungratefulness, has moved away from the straight and wide path which leads to the kingdom of my Father, and has followed the bleak pathway of impiety. My Father does not wish to annihilate the human race. He wants the living and the dead, that is to say, those who are dead according to the flesh, because death does not exist, to assist each other mutually and to listen no more to the voice of the prophets and apostles, but listen instead to those who no longer live upon the earth and proclaim, pray and believe. Death is the resurrection of life, and life is an ordeal you seek, during which the virtues you have cultivated will grow and develop, even as the cedar tree. Those of you who are weak and know the obscurity of your own minds, do not deviate from the beacon which divine clemency has put into your hands, so as to enlighten your pathway and reconduct you, who are lost children, once again to the bosom of the Father. I am too much overcome with compassion for your miseries and by your immense weakness not to extend a helping hand to all those unhappy, misguided, who, while looking up to heaven, fall into the pit of error. Believe, love, and meditate on those things which are revealed unto you. Do not mix the chaff with the good seed, nor the utopias with the truth. Spiritists, love one another. That is the first precept. Educate yourselves is the second. Within Christianity, you will find all the truths. The errors in which man has become enrooted are all of human origin. Here from beyond the grave, where you thought there was nothing, voices clamor, brothers and sisters, nothing perishes. Jesus Christ is the victor over all evil. You can be the victors over impiety. And that's from the Paris of Truth in the 1860s. So before I talk about what the Spirit of Truth just said, let me just go through here on my schedule for Sundays. I start this program on 8 p.m. on Rio time, because I'm right now in Rio de Janeiro. Now, when the time changed, it added another hour from New York time. So instead of being 1 hour ahead, I am now 2 hours. So for those of you in the U.S. time zones, I'll come at 6 p.m. Eastern, and of course all the way down to 3 p.m. Pacific. So that is, schedule. I'll still be talking on Sunday nights, but it will be 6 Eastern, because now when the time changes again, I wish some parts of the world are doing daylight saving times. Other parts have stopped it, and even I noticed the Microsoft operating system doesn't even know what the right Brazilian time is, because they did it and some didn't, and so that's why there's on the schedule. Now, my other schedule, I used to do Wednesdays on my Spiritism Spirit World Around Us. I'm now changing that to Tuesdays on Your Spiritual Journey on my Facebook site, Your Spiritual Journey. So I will come at the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I will give a live update on that live stream on Facebook. But whatever I come at, I will always post my videos on YouTube and BitChute, which please subscribe, tell your friends. And I will put this video on. I usually do it the same night or the next morning. So you can go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, and then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And anything you miss here on live streaming, I will be happy. You can certainly watch it at your leisure. And also, please, if you can, like it and make a comment and share whatever you have. That helps the algorithm for people to find it. And I'm having more and more people find the YouTube channel, and it's been very gratifying. I've gotten a lot more comments and wonderful things. So I want to tell everybody that. So let's talk about the Spirit of Truth. Now, when the Spirit of Truth says death is the resurrection of life, right? It's very interesting. I was just reading Life and Death by Leon Denis. And what he said is that the real painful thing, the most painful thing that happened to us is birth. Death is really is that you find yourself lighter. You don't have this heavy body, especially if you've lived a decent life. You don't have to be a saint. It's your trend line and your attitude, and have you tried to be good? No one says you're going to have to be perfect. Is then when you go back to the spirit world, that is a great thing. But of course, don't ever leave early, right? Because we all know as spiritists, suicides by the majority of time. I know there are exceptions, and people pointed this out to me. But the majority of time, if you are a suicide, you have to stay connected on the earth until the time that you were set to leave the earth as part of your reincarnation plan. So you don't want to do that. In fact, there's a great book on that. I recommend everybody. The Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pierre. That is like, I could read that book once a year. It was just brilliant writing. Camilo Branco. If I could meet any one of the person I would love to meet in the spirit world is Camilo Branco, because the way he writes. In fact, he was known as the Balzac of Portugal. Yeah, I think he died in almost end of 1800s. I can't remember what date. Brilliant writer. So I recommend that book, Memoirs of a Suicide. So anyway, Leon Denis said, it's birth is the hard part, because birth is you. And of course, this has been described by the books in the Andre Louis series, that your spirit gets down and comes down into that fertilized egg, and then while you're in that the egg that's starting to grow and cells multiply, etc. You have to relive your past lives, so you understand pretty well what you did wrong in the past, and that hopefully gives you a little kick, right? Kind of like you're in the corner in the boxing ring, and your manager says, watch your jaw or whatever. Same thing as you're just before you get pushed into the ring, you're reminded, okay, this is what you've done, and this is your plan, and go there. In fact, there's an interesting, now it wasn't really a near-death experience account. It was by this teacher. And she wrote this in one of the near-death, I think the nderf.org website. She was a teacher. And she had, I think it was like 9 or 10-year-old. And this 10-year-old boy, now this 10-year-old boy, and he didn't know this teacher was a friend of his mother when she was pregnant with this boy. She helped, the mother didn't have anyone to help her through the pregnancy. So she went to the hospital and she was the person at the birth. Now, unfortunately, the mother died soon after, and the boy lived with his grandparents. Now, the teacher never met the grandparents, and she never told the boy because she was a very good teacher and she didn't want anybody to think that he was special or anything like that. So she never told the boy. The boy had no knowledge that she knew his mother. So the one time she gave said, write a poem, about what you remember, your earliest memories. And of course, she said, most of these kids say, I remember this toy, right? Because that's your age. You remember your toy. You remember this. Well, then she calls on the boy. And then he starts saying the things he remembers during his birth. He said that when his mother was in the operating room, that he knew his mother was going to die. And then he appeared in the car, and he even said the type of car and the music that was playing in the car as she was trying to get to the hospital. And just like this, completely rearranged her thinking of life. Like, how could how could he know that? Then he said, he goes, then I asked my spirit, goes, can't she be my mother? And they told me, no, she can't be your mother, but you'll be taken care of. Don't worry, you'll be taken care of, and you'll interact with her later. And then the next thing goes, when you were in the hospital, you found this green sweater in the waiting room and you put it on because you were cold. And then she wrote in this NDE, she said, I've always been embarrassed. I felt terrible. I took a sweater, but it was just sitting there. And I've always put, and I've just put it in a drawer. I never worn it again because I felt so guilty wearing it because I stole a sweater, but, even though it's probably just left there by someone. And he knew everything that was going on. So these are the things that happen to us that are unexplainable to, for this teacher. I think if this teacher had her idea of God and man, maybe she's like me, right? She's like, God's there, but I'm not quite sure. Think how this would change her whole attitude, that he saw in the womb and coming out of the womb, he saw exactly what was going on. He knew what she was doing, that no one else was in the car. No one else was in the waiting room. She had not talked about that to anybody. Nothing. She'd never told the boy that she knew his mother. She never talked to the grandparents, so they ever gave him stories, never knew the grandparents. These are the things that each of us have different types of these experiences, maybe some just through their own intellectual power. God bless you if you can do that. I couldn't. I needed an experience quite similar of something that I could not explain unless it was knowing that there was something above us, something guiding us, and something in charge of what's going on. Because my idea before was very fuzzy. I mean, I'm sure that most regular religious people, Buddhists, Christians, Muslim, whatever, have this more fuzzy idea of God, the spirit world, heaven, right? This is where Spiritism is. This is where the spirit of truth, they're telling us these things, whereas they are the consoler. They're telling us things. They're giving us concrete information, which is actionable by us, so we can take the time to study, re-educate ourselves, And when we re-educate ourselves, we're not just saying, okay, I'm going to follow the book, whatever. I'm just going to be this, automaton, and I'm going to do what I'm told. No, we re-educate ourselves, and we put into what we know is what we can say is faith is rooted in reason, our own reason, by our own experiences, things that science cannot explain at this moment. But that is really what Spiritism is telling us. Spiritism is, when you talk to Spiritists, they don't really go out and evangelize like, oh, you better believe in Spiritism or you're going to rot in hell. No, not at all. You're not, because you got plenty of chances. We're just putting this information on the shelf. If you want to understand why bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, this might help you. This is for your own edification. You can pick that book up or you can ignore it. You can stay parked in where you are. But this is for your own edification. So you can decide, will you start reprogramming your life today, or wait until the spirit world will program so many different events for you that at one point in time, you'll wake up and you'll see what's happening. That will happen eventually. No matter what you do today or not do today, that will all happen eventually. We'll all get to be a pure spirit. Yeah. But the timing is up to us. We can go faster or we can go slower. So let's carry on. So this is this is from the Spirit of Truth. I have come to instruct and console the poor disinherited. I have come to tell them to raise up their resignation to the level of their trials, and to weep, since pain was consecrated in the Garden of Olives. But wait with patience, for the consoling angels will also come to them and dry their tears. Workers, plan your path. Recommence the following day the wearisome labor of the previous day. The work done by your hand furnishes the body with earthly bread. However, your souls are not forgotten. So let's stop right there. Recommence the following day with the wearisome labor of the previous day. So what they are telling us is analyze where you are. Think about what you've done. Think about, when I say plan the path, think about how you can improve because now you have this information while you're on Earth, right? You have a blueprint for your life. You're being taught these things for a reason. You can analyze your episodes. By analyzing your episodes, you can pretty well determine what you've done in the past, and you can learn from them. And then every day, think about, okay, what have I done, right? I used to do this when I would walk to work in the mornings, and I would, walk through the streets of, Seattle. And when I first started walking, I go, oh, this bum, right? And then, I started changing my mind. I started saying, instead of saying, I wish this bum was gone, it smells, right? I would say, oh, poor guy. He's made some bad choices. He's had hard trials ahead. God bless him. I hope he gets all the help he can get. So, and that's really rewiring your brain, right? And this is plan your path. Is think what you can improve on, and don't worry, and don't beat yourself up over falling back, right? Because rewiring your brain is years and years and years, decades. I've been a decade at this, and I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. Stress is so much less than it used to be. It's just amazing. And I feel better. I believe I'm healthier. And I think the people around me can see it too. And I think the same thing will happen to everybody out there. Is the more you understand that whatever happens to you and whatever is done to you is planned for your own edification. You go, oh, well, if something bad happened, whatever, you accept it more, and you just have to get some humor into it and think, what have I done now? Well, or what did I do then? I guess is the better words, instead of, the old, Laurel and Hardy when it says, "What have you gotten into me now?" Right. So, and it's like, what have I gotten myself into now? What did I do in the past to get myself into this? And most probably, I was the one to help plan this. I can't, there was a great, and I forgot the exact words, but I think it was in the Spiritual Wisdom, Misses of Truth by Chico Xavier and Herculano Perez. And this guy wrote and says, I can't stand it. I cannot stand the trials I have. Life is just too hard. And I believe Andre Luis or Manuel, I can't remember what spirit talked to him and said, look, if you're not having problems, then you wouldn't be on earth, right? If you didn't have your friends gossip about you, if you didn't have people trying, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it perfect, but all these things that happen to us all day, if you didn't have your friends gossip about you, if you didn't have your jobs in jeopardy, if you didn't, have all these other things happen to you, you wouldn't be on earth. So you're on earth. This is part of your education. So it's kind of just us saying, yes, okay. Imagine if you were in junior high or middle school, whatever it's called in your area, and you had the capacity to realize you were this bundle of hormones and couldn't think straight, right? Because, of course, at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, you are a genius and everything you say is right, and all the adults are just stupid, right? But imagine if you'd had the ability to really say, there's a lot of things wrong with me, and I am immature. And that's really the difference, right? Is think of it that way. Is think of that if you are an aware middle schooler or junior high schooler. I mean, how many of them are there? I'm sure there are some, but I know I wasn't. I wasn't self-aware. I was self-absorbed, self-something, but that is, that's the difference. So let me carry on. When the time comes, this is from the Spirit of Truth. When the time comes for repose and the thread of life slips through your fingers and your eyes are closed to the light, you will feel the surging within and the germination of my precious seed. Nothing is lost in the kingdom of our Father. Your sweat and miseries form the treasure that will make you rich in the superior spheres, where light substitutes the darkness and where the most naked of you will perhaps become the most resplendent. In truth, I say to you that those who bear their burdens and help their brothers and sisters are beloved by me. Instruct yourselves in the precious doctrine, which dissipates the error of revolt and sows the sublime object of human trials. So again, this is, you read this all the time, spiritualist literature. People who have gone through life and who are the poor bank clerk, right? Or the ditch digger or whatever, and have almost nothing, are sometimes the most splendid when they reach the other side. And the CEO and the billionaire are sitting at their knees trying to learn how to become a better person. In fact, this was in one of the books by G. Vao Owen, where this man who was a pretty famous author was trying to learn how should he reshape his thinking by a person who was an old stoker, right? The one that put the coals into the furnace on the ships back at the time when things were steam and coal powered. This famous author was trying to learn from this person who he would not have even noticed a moment. And I think G. Vaughan's mother said it was interesting because they could read his thoughts, him trying to convince himself, I'm this famous author. Why am I listening to this guy? But he was trying to change his attitude, right? I mean, God bless him. And he was trying to learn from this. So what we are in this life is just part of our lesson plan. It's not who we are. It's what we had to go through. It's what course we were assigned, what body we wear, what economic condition we are, what culture, what race we are, a part of the world, what type of good or bad government we're under. That's just that we are all we're all in those situations because we could learn the best that what we needed to learn from those situations. And when you go back over, hopefully, if the lesson plan worked with the optimal efficiency, and especially it will if you allow it to work and not deny it and not say, I'm not going to learn from this. I'm going to get revenge, right? This person did, I'm going to get revenge. I'll learn from that. And you will just, you will be in wonderful, wonderful shape. So I just want to say, everyone, that thank you for going my first show at the beginning of the 2020. And I talk a lot more about heaven and Jesus, a lot about Jesus and the power of Jesus in the spirit world in my book, Heaven and Below, book 1 of Spiritism, the spirit world revealed to an Anglican vicar. And it's just amazing of the more you really understand our Christ, Jesus Christ. He wasn't just this wonderful prophet that came to earth for 30 short years. He is the whole leader of our planet, right? He helped form our planet. He helped guide the whole human race. He's helping guide us now. He's helping guide not just individually, but culturally. As they say, one race will disappear and the next race will start. Who knows what we'll look like 50,000 years from now? I mean, we'll be lighter, less dense. We'll glide. I mean, these bodies we are just temporary. So, but the interesting part is about Jesus. And if you would like to learn more about heaven and the regions below and Jesus Christ, I have a whole section all about different information about Jesus from the books by Reverend G. Val Owen, who was the Anglican vicar. And I also cross-reference and put in information from other Spiritist writers. Please read my book, Heaven and Below. Anyway, I want to say God bless everyone, and I hope everyone had a great new year, and I will see you later.